Okay. As I said, thank you very much for the presentation. And I think it's wonderful that you guys are the Carmelite in or Maria vom Frieden is offering this space for young investigators like myself to explore and chat and have a little colloquium on the amazing works of Edith Stein and the different sides of her theory. Basically, maybe my topic is, I would say, I don't know, maybe a little basic, if I could put it this way, but I believe that, I don't know, I got to know Stein through the relationship between faith and knowledge. And I believe it's one of the remarkable characteristics of her thought that I don't know, I think she offers a very, very deep philosophy. And I think that through faith and knowledge, you could really get a sense or a taste of what her philosophy entails and is, and I don't know, a little like an introduction, I would say. So although anyone familiar with her thought will already know what I'm saying, but I don't know, I thought to bring like a broad image to this chat that we're having today. So I titled my dissertation. I wrote a dissertation on this already. So I titled my presentation, "Can Faith and Reason Work Together? Edith Stein's Approach to the Controversy." I think it's important to know what her thought is on this specific topic, since, of course, throughout the entire history of philosophy, the relationship between faith and reason has been nothing but controversial. So I think with Edith Stein, she puts into question, what is faith? How should we understand the truth of faith and revelation? Is faith a type of knowledge, or should we take faith as mere belief? How to deal with dogmas? And yes, just in general, these queries that revolve around this. I think that Stein addresses all of these topics in her magnum opus, Finite and Eternal Being, when she proposes to construct what she calls a Christian philosophy, which she says is nothing but to try to form a perfect work of reason. As a introduction and an introductory quote, I have there written a quote found in page 25 of Finite and Eternal Being, where she says that Christian philosophy, she defines it as a unity and synthesis of all the knowledge we have gained by the exercise of our natural reason and by revelation. I think that brings together what she will propose or proposes in Endliches und Ewiges Sein. For this, I have divided this topic in 3 principal points, followed by a conclusion. I believe that in the first place, I will speak about the relationship between faith and knowledge, which I believe is highlighted and gone into depth in her conference, her article entitled "What is Philosophy? A Conversation Between Edmund Husserl and St. Thomas Aquinas." In the second section, I dive into Edith Stein's life and work, which is indeed the title of this colloquium, which I believe that it is important to see the biological side of Edith Stein and how her biographical background unites with her philosophy. And finally, how faith and reason both come to terms to work together and collide in her final work, Finite and Eternal Being. So to start with the first part of my presentation, I have analyzed fundamentally the second part, so chapter number 2 of Knowledge and Faith, which in the English collected works. Stein offers us a series of essays that take as their main topic of discussion this relationship between faith and knowledge, or what is to say the same, at the end, the controversy boils down to the controversy between philosophy and religion or theology. In 1929, Stein composed an essay that she wrote in a literary style, which developed an imaginary dialogue between her, who were her two philosophical masters, Professor Edmund Husserl and St. Thomas Aquinas. The text I dealt with fundamentally is version A, because version B was later altered, asked an alteration by philosopher Martin Heidegger, requested this alteration, although I believe, or from my perspective, that in this first version, we get a closer sense and a most valuable sense to what Stein thought philosophy was. That's why she entitled it, What is Philosophy? So I think that to approach this dialogue, firstly, one must ask themselves in the first place, why did Stein choose these two characters out of all the possible characters she could have chosen? And number two, what I just said, why is it entitled What is Philosophy? Fundamentally, the answer to the first question, for, as I said, whoever is somewhat familiar with Stein's intellectual background, is simple. Professor Edmund Husserl portrays Stein's, so to say, larger philosophical commitment to the phenomenological movement and circle, while St. Thomas represents her later in life devotion to the Christian religion and interest in the metaphysical thinkers. The answer to the second question, however, requires, I think, a little bit more meditation, and that we rethink the origins of philosophy. Where did philosophy start? Evidently, since the ancient Greeks, philosophy was considered a dialogical activity, namely two or more interlocutors through a series of arguments of contradictions. I mean, I believe what comes to mind is Plato and Socrates, fundamentally, all the sophists as well. They synthesized their initial positions through these questions and answers, and became, I guess one could say, dialectically transformed. What I initially thought about what is, I don't know, truth or virtue, all these whatever topics, in the end, after our dialogue has changed. And I think Stein remarkably shows this relationship here between Husserl and Aquinas, and how through this dialogically approach in a well and serene manner, they can engage in a fruitful conversation and uncover the mutual relationship that their both philosophies share. I think that the intuition Stein had behind this dialogue is to unite the activities of both phenomenology and scholasticism, or faith and reason, which was her own attempt in finite and eternal being. However, in section 2 of this present essay that I'm addressing, Stein distinguishes between two fundamental concepts, which are natural knowledge and supernatural knowledge. And in the mouth of, she puts in the mouth of Thomas Aquinas, so Stein's Aquinas, as I usually say. And this is the quote that I have in this slide that I'm presenting. She says that I could never admit that this is the only way of knowledge. Of course, she's speaking about reason. Truth is folly. What does this quote tell us? It tells us that natural knowledge is limited. Natural knowledge finds its limits and needs the aid of something else, hence supernatural knowledge. So she says that in contrast to natural knowledge, the light of reason that can seek the truth and try, I emphasis on the word try, to avoid all sources of deceit by putting into brackets the natural attitude, i.e. the phenomenological bracketing, needs the aid of supernatural knowledge, that is faith and revealed truth, which stands as a second pathway to knowledge in general or truth as such. Basically, it provides two things, she says. It provides truths in the plural, and which are the truths that the fathers of the church teach us, or truths that we find in the Holy Scriptures, miracles, and in this sense, and then it provides us a truth in the singular form, which I would say truth in capital letters, as it is grounded on pure certainty and acts as a guide for human knowledge, which cannot go over or beyond the boundaries of reason. So I think that this is one of the main topics that lead Stein to this combination between Husserl and Aquinas, phenomenology and scholasticism. I believe that one of the central affirmations that Stein makes in this essay also is the fact that natural reason alone can only advance step by step. She says that, and the solution to this is that it remains fragmentary. I mentioned before Plato and Socrates. I believe that almost all, if not all, we could question as philosophers, Plato's dialogues end up in aporia. So what does this tell us? It tells us that philosophy is not able to make totalitarian or absolute remarks on certain topics. It is more about asking questions than finding an answer. Stein, however, as a follower of Thomism, she was looking for this answer. She wanted to understand truth. She wanted to grasp truth. She wanted to find the answer. And of course, she was more than humble and knew that this truth, as she was a human person, was impossible. Again, I do not like to make like absolute remarks when it comes to Edith Stein, because I believe that she wouldn't have wanted that either. I think she always wanted to keep this door open to what could be and could not be possible. And I think that in this door open, however much it would be open if we continue with the metaphor, is what faith gives her. And she shows through faith. So to deconstruct the prejudice on what belief is, Stein also addresses in the Mouth of Aquinas that it has been, I don't know, considered as a feeling or einfach, so to say, like in the German word, she uses the word Glaube, which means to believe, as in ich glaube das, so I believe in this, which makes faith seem like it has, so to say, a lower ontological status, or a lower status insofar as it is just doxa or opinion. However, Stein shows that the certainty of faith is much higher than the certainty we could get from mere natural knowledge, because methodologically, as I said, it acts as a guide for natural knowledge, and formally, it has a dependence. It makes reason, natural reason, depend on it, as it is, she says, the criterion and measure of all particular truths. I quoted the second quote I have on the presentation. In her words, she explains that she says, "So natural reason, enlightened by faith, goes its own way in harmony with supernatural truth." So these both sources of knowledge go, I would say, hand in hand for Edith Stein. When one lacks, the other one supplies. That's how I would explain what she thought. So that's on the first part this of faith and knowledge. So moving on to the second part of my presentation, I wanted to give an overall idea of how her life and work, namely her biographical context, influenced her thought in a way that I think that it didn't influence other philosophers, and I think is a remarkable aspect that we find in Edith Stein. In volume, if I remember correctly, in the preface to the German edition of the 10th volume of the Gesamtgabe, Father Romanius Leuven writes that the second part of Stein's life demonstrates how faith and knowledge complete the portrait of the person Edith Stein. And I think that this remark is outstanding for the people that are in her thought and are reading her thought, as we all are, because I think that without approaching her life and work, her life story, without this background, we cannot get a good sense of what her philosophy entails and what leads her to hold this sort of Christian philosophy, as she calls it. So basically Stein, in the middle of the 20th century Germany, who came from a Jewish family, but since an early age doubted her religious beliefs, entered the university in search for a firm basis that could put her skepticism to rest. Then, as we know, after writing her PhD dissertation under Professor Edmund Husserl, she believed, and she affirms this On the Problem of Empathy, that phenomenology offers the ultimate basis of all knowledge. However, in around 1917, after the death of co-phenomenologist Adolf Reinach in World War I, so Stein faced a crucial moment in her life. She felt a deep crisis, which made her, as she says in her autobiography, the biggest decision of her life. In 1922, as we know, she converted to Catholicism and was baptized, which 10 years later became a professed Discalced Carmelite nun under the religious name of Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. These life events profoundly mark her doctrine in an incredible way that I believe not many philosophers or thinkers have. I believe that Stein would say, before being a philosopher, I am a person, or a human person, in her way, which, after reading Saint Teresa of Avila's autobiography, she found the way out of this chaos that she was experiencing in all its historical, spiritual, and metaphysical dimensions. Namely, the widely spread anti-Semitism suffered during the years of the Second World War profoundly marked Edith Stein's heritage, her childhood, her religious and cultural ethnical ground bases. All of this were put into question. I think it's hard for us to think about this incredible change and transformation that the world was experiencing, but thank God we don't have to experience something like that. But I think that it incredibly marked thinkers like Edith Stein. As Frieda Oben said in her work on a little treatise on Edith Stein, she said that Stein's life, that Stein, in the person of Christ and in the image of the Virgin Mary, that is, I would say, in Christianity itself, she saw her Jewishness reflected. It's not like she starts on one point and then she completely is something else. It's not, I don't know, I would say in her own terminology, I would say it's not part of her type, it's her part of her entire species, her Jewishness. And I think that this spiritual patrimony common to Christians and Jews, what John Paul II called this sacred link, tied these both faiths, made Stein want to penetrate even more into her faith and strongly hold it with fidelity, her roots as a Jew. I believe that this reconciliation made the thinker achieve a deeper inner maturity of spirit with her roots, and autobiographically account for the terrible shadow that the 20th century casted on the Jews. As Stein herself says it in the preface of Life in a Jewish Family, she says, to develop the idea of Judaism and to defend it against the false interpretations, to present the content of Jewish religion, to write the history of Jewish people is my objective. And I think that this is something that comes profoundly in her thought and is seen in different areas of the second part of her of a Christian philosophy, namely in Kreuzwissenschaft and in the other spiritual works that she has written. So on this basis, I believe that it should come as no surprise that Stein's mature thought attempted to construct a philosophical doctrine based on Christianity. Throughout her entire life, Stein had both religious and philosophical personalities. Even at the beginning of her life, she never ceases to put into question, to put into the light of reason, so to say, her faith or the principles of philosophy in phenomenology. Nonetheless, it only takes reason, but also courage, Stein teaches us in the second part of her life, to have even the ability to listen to our inner selves, to open our soul and direct our spirits towards heaven. As she expressed it in a letter directed to Fritz Kaufmann, she says that it is important for the human person to become like a child and lay their life with all searching and ruminating into the Father's land. So I believe that what we can see in Stein's own person is also this connection between reason and faith. Finally, in this, to finish this section, I think that Stein, it is clear that her biographical background mirrors in a way her intellectual path. So as she converted to Christianity, Stein became interested in medieval philosophy. This is when she familiarized, of course, with the thought of St. Thomas Aquinas, which she says where she found an intellectual home, but also in all other Christian authors like St. Augustine and Duns Scotus. Meanwhile, this doesn't mean she abandons phenomenology. More on the contrary, she believed that both currents of thought could work together. Phenomenology on the one side was set in Stein's thought as the method of inquiry, that is, as this analysis of, or eidetic analysis of what Husserl called die Sache selbst, so the things in themselves, in experience as experienced consciously by the subject, and Thomism and scholastic philosophy in general on the other side rendered access to truths and reality from all bound subject relativity, which means that it freed this point of departure, and it opens Stein's philosophy to, let's say, a broader analysis. So I think that to summarize the second point and the second idea of Stein's background and biographical context, I think that the affirmation Sarah Borden-Scherke makes in her companion to Edith Stein's Finite and Eternal Being could really highlight the important points of this part. So I quote Sarah Borden, she says that Stein doctrine can be seen as a grand bringing together of phenomenology, Thomistic metaphysics, Carmelite spirituality, 20th century physics, debates regarding the soul, and reflections on the Trinity, everything centered on the question of the meaning of being. So this would sum up the second part of this presentation. And now I would go on to the third and final point.
Thank you, Sofía. Just an interruption. You still have 2-3 minutes just to orient yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'll just summarize very quickly.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Basically, I was just going to give a point to her magnum opus and a reference to where you could see the result of this coming together of Stein's project of constructing a Christian philosophy, where she writes the meeting of the two philosophical worlds, which demanded a dialectic elucidation, takes place. So primarily her objective in this work is to search for the meaning of being through a synthesis of medieval thought and the phenomenological procedure. So what I think, since I don't have much time left, I want to quickly remark is the fact that I think that the touchstone of Stein's philosophy is her anthropological theory, and where we can also see this union between faith and reason, as the human person is constructed by this threefold perspective of as a spiritual being, as a psychological being, and of course as an embodied or organic living being. And I think that this the idea of the analogia entis makes us see that we are closer to God than we think, and we are as far away as God than we do not know. So this these two realms, this division between our two realms, are even not only part of Stein's philosophy, but part of the human being's nature in general. So to finish, I would like to say that I believe that Stein can give us this this existential lesson to teach us that through the reunion of faith and reason, we can see the limits of our humanity, of our own understanding. And this is when she says, so on the account of our finite nature, we can only sometimes, and I would put into brackets, rationally, take a leap of faith. So thank you very much for listening to me. And it's wonderful that we have this space to share.